Hello dear YouTube Sangha, and welcome to another episode of Dharma Stories. This story is interpreted and written by Dharma Peace and recounts the life of a ruler most people outside of Asia hardly ever learn about, Ashoka the Great. He governed from the city of Pataliputra in the 3rd century BCE during the Mauryan dynasty. In later years, his name would be closely tied to the spread of the teachings of the Buddha, and his story begins with the practical aspect of the lives lived by ancient Indians and the way their lives were governed. In those years, the strength of a kingdom was measured not only by its armies, but by what it could move and where it could move it. From the interior, goods traveled along the great rivers and over worn caravan paths. Traders spoke often of the eastern coast, where ships met the tide and carried goods out across the Bay of Bengal. The land of Kalinga held exclusive jurisdiction over the east coast, its roots touching the inland flow of the Ganges River and the Godavari River. Men came to the court of Ashoka with complaints that governed weight over time. Major chieftains and traders nagged the king to seize control over Kalinga the way he had done for 8 years in other regions. They argued it would make things easier, but the truth is Kalinga was a strong nation, and to win, Ashoka knew he'd have to be ruthless. The thought of it weighed on him. Just knowing he'd have to visit destruction on Kalinga seemed superfluous when they already had trade with the region. The grievances flowed through the court like a bottleneck. Ministers surrounded King Ashoka. One perked up. "Lord, Kalinga has cost us a great deal. They wish to control every inch of trade from the coast." A caravan leader nodded and added, "Lord, my caravan was even subject to search, and I think many of my stocks have been seized." Annoyed at the caravan leader, Ashoka glared. "Did you abide by their custom laws?" The nervous caravan leader slid back as if to sink into the crowd. The minister defended the caravan leader. "My lord, I assure you, everyone is lawful here. The Kalinga are simply disrespecting our kingdom, your kingdom." And to this, a cheer came from the crowd. Before he could instill order, Ashoka could see his subjects for where they stood. Ministers and traders, chieftains and vassals, even the lower castes were in an uproar over this new narrative regarding the Kalinga, this new scapegoat. King Ashoka fell silent and told his ministers to call for a council meeting. He would think deeply, alone in his chambers, for the hours leading to that meeting. In the council that followed, the talk was plain. "If we do nothing, others will see it," said one minister. Another said, "We have sent grievances. They return them with silence. They point us to their stone edicts, which they know we've read." A third minister spoke more quietly. "They insulted us and then kept half of our stock grain at the checkpoint." Ashoka listened. He could tell the third minister was telling the truth. Ashoka knew such corruption could happen anytime, anywhere. But was war the answer? As if to answer his internal monologue, a minister spoke up. "They left us no choice. We must go to war." And before Ashoka could respond, everyone in the council room agreed. And it was at this juncture Ashoka realized, in all his 8 years of waging war, he was tired. He didn't want to go along with these decisions, but the ministers forced him to prove himself as their king. He reluctantly agreed to go to war with Kalinga, but he was secretly hoping the war would bring peace and prosperity to the region. He knew connecting the Bay of Bengal with Pataliputra would mean uniting 2 major trading and supply hubs across the subcontinent. The campaign moved along the same paths the traders had described. Boats pushed against the current where they could. Men walked the rest. Messengers came back in stages, each one carrying a piece of the whole. "We crossed at first light. They held the ridge. We took the outer settlements." Each report was spoken, remembered, and set aside for the next. When the fighting ended, the words used in the council were familiar. "Kalinga is subdued. The coast is secured. The routes are open." It was said that the matter was finished. Ashoka went to see it himself. The road into Kalinga was cut deep with the marks of passage. Wheels had pressed the earth. hard. In places it had been burned. Broken carts lay on one side, their loads scattered or gone, giving newfound sense of barren waste. The nearer they came to where the fighting had been strongest, the fewer signs there were of ordinary life. The scene of hell began to assemble right before Ashoka's eyes. He dismounted before entering the field. The ground was a rolling mass that seemed familiar, yet completely alien to him. It had been torn, pressed, and darkened. A man lay near the path, his breathing uneven. When he saw the movement, he tried to lift his head. "Water," he said. Ashoka took a vessel and crouched beside him. He held it as the man drank. Some of the water spilled down his chin. He swallowed again, then seemed to settle. His hand, which had gripped Ashoka's wrist, loosened. He looked down at his body and noticed the gaping wounds that exposed the man's innards and bone through his abdomen and chest. His gaze wandered to the man's upper arm as he noticed an ivory amulet caked in coagulated blood and dirt. On the amulet was the head of an elephant, which he knew was a symbol of protection in battle. The man let out a gasp, his final breath, and laid face down next to the king. Ashoka placed the vessel beside him and stood. Further on, a line of people moved slowly under guard. Their hands were bound, some walking steadily, others stumbled and were pulled along. One of the soldiers said, "These are to be taken inland." Another added, "There are many more behind them." "How many?" Ashoka asked. "Thousands," the soldier said. "More than we can count in one place." They walked past him. A woman moved among the fallen, turning faces toward the light, searching. When she found one she knew, she sat beside him and did not move again. A short distance away, a girl pulled at the arm of a man lying on his side.
"Get up,"
the girl said.
"We have to go. It's time for dinner."
Ashoka stopped.
"You tell him,"
the girl said, looking up.
"He listens to men like you."
Ashoka looked at the man, then back at the child. "He cannot hear me," he said, surprising himself with the cracking of his own voice.
"They said you won,"
the girl replied. Ashoka did not answer. They left the field before night fell. In the days that followed, the reports were gathered and spoken aloud in the court. Numbers were given, as they always were. It was said that 100,000 enemies had been killed in the fighting. Many times that number had died after, from wounds, from hunger, from what follows when a place is broken. 150,000 had been taken away from Kalinga, carried off from their homes. The minister announced these numbers, as if to decorate the king with a garland of victory. But to Ashoka, it may as well be a garland of fingers, or skulls, or worse, crying and starving children. Ashoka listened to spite himself. When the reader finished, there was a pause, as if waiting for the next matter to begin. "Read it again," Ashoka said. The minister did, less enthusiastically this time. Again and again he did, now visibly frustrated. Again! The minister lost all enthusiasm. Again! No one spoke after. In the weeks that followed, the work of the court continued, but Ashoka's attention shifted. When told that the routes were open, he asked who now walked them. When told that trade had improved, he asked who had been left behind. The answers came, but they did not settle the questions. After weeks of self-imposed solitude, he began to spend time with those who spoke of the teachings of the Buddha. People who only ever amused him with their stories and seemingly frivolous debates. He surprised himself how refreshing it was to hear from them about stories regarding gardening and ox carts. As opposed to rule over territory, they spoke of suffering, of its causes, and of what follows from actions once they are set in motion. Ashoka listened. He did not speak. He did not insist on what topic they chose. He just listened. After one such talk, he finally spoke. "What is done does not end when it is done." The sutra monk he spoke with said, "No, it continues unless something changes." Changes did come, though not all at once. Orders were being given to limit certain kinds of killing. Officials were told to listen more carefully before deciding. Care for animals was spoken alongside of care for people. These instructions were carried along the same roads and rivers that had once carried only commands of another kind. Ashoka also ordered that new decrees would be carved into stone and set where people would see them. Pillars rose along the routes of travel, near wells and crossings. The carvings spoke of restraint, being reserved in conduct, of respect, and of the need to avoid harm where possible. A horse trader, allowing his horses to drink from the trough beside one such pillar, traced the letters and said, "The king speaks of kindness." His neighbor, a spice trader, replied, "Kindness does not open the roads." The horse trader said, "Without kindness, without love, what are the roads for?" Before the spice trader could respond, the horse trader perked up. "Suppose a bandit came right now. Would you rather he be the cruel kind?" The second trader frowned and went about his business. The horse trader smiled and wondered at the pillar. At the top stood 3 lions and a Dharma wheel that resembled the sun to him. Over time, these ideas moved beyond Mauryan and Kalinga lands. Monks under the charge of King Ashoka traveled along the trade routes, carrying the Dharma with them, speaking in places where goods had long been exchanged. What had begun with concern over control became something that did not depend on holding a coast or a river. For us now, it is not difficult to see how such governance shapes the lives of many, when a narrow route carries what people depend on. Those who hold it hold more than ground. Decisions made in such places can reach far beyond them. Long before Ashoka, the Buddha lived in a world where conflict was ubiquitous. There were those who opposed him, including his own cousin, Devadatta, who was remembered for attempting to harm him or even assassinate him, and defied his followers. In one account, a man came to him in anger and spoke harshly. When he had finished, the Buddha asked, "If a gift is offered and not taken, who does it belong to?" The man said, "To the one who offered it." The Buddha replied, "Then what you offer, I do not take." The exchange was simple. It did not end conflict around the world. It did not remove harm from the world, but it showed a way of meeting it without adding to it. And that the Buddha's Dharma is one of peace and the cessation of antagonism in whatever form. King Ashoka most certainly carried these teachings throughout the empire. After the Kalinga War, Ashoka continued to rule. The roads remained, the rivers continued to flow, trade moved again along the coast. But the memory of what had been required to secure it did not leave him, because he knew the cost, and he prayed very candidly, as evidenced on his own pillars, that the prosperity of the region would reinvigorate and serve as reparation for the harm he had caused. From then, he wanted the whole world to learn the lesson from his shift in priorities. His edicts praise mutualism, goodwill, and loving kindness above any form of conquest or domination. The world has not changed nearly enough for this story to seem irrelevant. Actions of a ruler 2 millennia ago more than mirror current events today. But the lesson here is that we can always shift our priorities. The greatest conqueror could become the greatest benefactor, and we can always make that choice, no matter the circumstances.